session that will live in infamy. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Two Nerds, One Quest. Welcome back. Did we go anywhere? Well, yeah, I suppose. We left for a week. It's after commercial breaks when we say welcome back, but you didn't go anywhere. I am your host and DM, JC Dimmer, here with these two nerds for our special Mother's Day talk show type version of our game. We aren't playing anything today. There are several things to talk about. The role-playing world, the tabletop role-play world is strong and has many facets this week, in my life at least. Considering I've played 2 games already this weekend.
That's a lot of games.
That is a lot of games. That man right there is Tom M. Norman talking to the mic, doing the nose crinkle in the brewer's shirt.
It's just because I'm jealous. I wanted to play 2 games this weekend. That would have been fun.
Well, hey, Memorial Day weekend's coming. I mean, we're getting down. I don't know. What are we doing?
We're getting down.
Are we trying to find people for a game? Oh, and that other guy over there. That other guy, Jeff Williams. He's here with us this morning. Hi, Jeff. How are you doing?
Good.
This is how laid back this is. I got like no structure for this.
I only had one other session this weekend, and it was good.
It was.
I don't think anyone. Yeah, someone must have taken damage. Oh yeah, I took some damage while I was a rat.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone else took any damage.
Be a rat. Yeah, the goblins didn't swing very hard. See, now the weird thing is
the
that
trolls were swinging though.
That encounter with the goblins, to give you an idea, was only 20 experience less difficult than the owl from the previous session.
But it's strategy based.
Where I almost killed all of you. And then they steamrolled 4 goblins. It's like, that does not make sense. Then again, it may be more swingy at level 1.
Yeah.
Depending on how you put that together. And if you, that's an appropriate title, more swingy at level 1. There's a lot of swinging yesterday. For those of you that weren't there, the party encountered 2 adolescent trolls that they essentially blocked off the river to a town that was downriver. And when the party went to explore it, they found out they had blocked it off just to have a swimming pool. And they were swimming in it naked, and the trolls' hanger was swinging.
As one does.
As he described it. He said he couldn't crouch too much because he'd be dragging these nuts on the ground. But the party, without combat, convinced him to undam the river by not convincing them, but educating them as to what the ocean was. And they were
really big swimming pool.
Yeah, and if they followed the river, they'd find the ocean, which was true. But then the party realized, oh, hang on a minute, we got to go to the farm and tell them not to shoot at the trolls. We got to go to the city and make sure the constable doesn't do anything. And the other folks in the city don't run away and panic. So yeah, it was kind of fun.
Everybody loves a good panic.
Oh my god. At the disco, definitely. The most fun a girl can have with her clothes on. It's actually the title of one of their songs.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't that a song title?
Yep, from their first album. So anyway, what do we want to start talking about? I mean, I can tell you guys a little bit about Shadowdark if you'd like to. We could go over the Daggerheart 1.4 rules if you want to. I don't know how much Tom wants to talk about this stuff. I don't know.
I'll if we plan on playing it at some point, I will
play it.
Yeah, I'll play with anything.
Well, I'll say one thing I was curious about for the amount of stuff that Tom has played. I'd like to get kind of a positives and negatives from each system based on his experience. So, because mostly you played D&D and then Pathfinder with just a little bit of easy D6
in there. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like if comparing systems or just comparing them to other things, things you really like about D&D, things you like more about Pathfinder, or things you've seen in other systems or are aware of that you're like, I really like this or that?
Yeah, this is like a game design question.
Wow.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, it's tough because they are so similar, but yet they are so different. I do really, I think I like the Pathfinder system better at this point. I like the I don't want to say the different rule sets because they're kind of the same as D&D, but like I feel like you have more options, more.
It's just more rules. The rules for niche things are laid out more.
Yeah. I feel like D&D was a little bit more tight ruled.
Tight ruled, really?
Like
As far as probably more about character building.
Character building, but also like rules wise. Like I feel like in Pathfinder we've had more discussion about what we can and can't do, and we've done more. Well, I guess that's not true because Aranon did a lot of weird shit that you let me get away with.
Well, that's kind of the thing that is like in D&D, like in Pathfinder, there's a rule for it. Like if you're gonna ask something, there is likely a rule for it. They've accounted for most things happening.
Mm-hmm.
Where in 5e, they kind of lumped everything into your skill checks / ability checks.
I suppose it's really about how the DM, like what the DM lets you do versus rules following versus.
Yeah, and I think it's less about what the DM lets you do and more how the DM interprets what you're wanting to do and how they do it. Because I think in both cases, there's probably enough of a rule to say, well, here's what you probably should do. But I think you probably got a little more flexibility because D&D doesn't specifically say, do this exact roll with this exact bonus at this exact time, where Pathfinder has those. I mean, we were even talking yesterday about riding a horse. If you're on a horse during combat, you're supposed to do a command an animal check just to get it to move, and then depending on whether it's a friendly animal or not friendly animal changes the DC and the bonuses and all that kind of stuff. And it's, whereas like when we're talking in D&D, it's typically just, well, the horse has a 50-foot speed, so you can go 50 feet as as your movement.
Well, and the thing is the most brilliant thing that 5e brought about was advantage and disadvantage. Because where you have that rule set in Pathfinder 2e, where if it's a friendly animal, it's like a DC 5 check to get it to respond to you in combat. Where if it's an unfriendly animal, that goes up significantly.
It's like you automatically fail if it's a hostile animal. If it's helpful to you, increase the degree of success by 1 step. So basically, as long as you don't critically fail, you succeed, because a failure bumps up to a success. I mean, if you look at, even with a 0 for nature, to critically fail, you'd have to have 10 less than the animal's will DC. Which is, will DC for an animal is probably like 12 or 13. So you'd have to roll a 3 and have a 0 bonus in order, So
so we've laid out all this and you just explained all that. Where in 5e it is, you're jumping on a horse. Is it friendly to you? Okay, you have advantage. Is it neutral to you? You just make the roll. Is it unfriendly to you or doesn't like you? Disadvantage. And that is really where there's all the different little circumstance bonuses, which existed in Pathfinder 1st Edition, which is what was my big draw to 5e, was knowing how much of a bonus or non-bonus to give. Now I've adapted to this and found places and learned playing it over this past year, playing 2e over this past year, but that was my big draw to 5e at the time was, if you have help there, it's advantage. If you don't, it's disadvantage. It's very simple as a DM to use that and have that as a mindset that you can always just do that to represent being good or bad at something, or a stressful versus non-stressful situation. So where I would, like, if anyone was going to start DMing and they wanted a system that was a little bit more rules heavy, I would say start with 5e because those concepts are baked in easier.
And, you know, it could just be recency bias, too, because we are playing Pathfinder right now, and D&D we haven't played in a year and a half, and...
Yeah. I am really, really looking forward to trying this one.
Which one is that? That's the
Shadowdark.
Shadowdark? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an old school, like 1E AD&D style. Like my starting character sheet, my character's got like it's crazy. It's just crazy. Where the heck?
Yeah, you know what, Tom? Like in 5e and in Pathfinder, you basically, well, in Pathfinder you choose where you put your scores, and even in D&D, if you roll your scores, you put them where you want them. The system that John's talking about, you roll them in order, and you know, whereas if you've already kind of said this is the class I want to play, you may roll stats that don't fit with your class, and guess what? Tough it up.
Too fucking bad.
So you have my priest here that I rolled out for this game, who has 12 strength. Oh, here's the other thing. When you roll the stats, it's 3d6 strength, dex, con, int, wisdom, charisma. Down the row. You don't get to flip them around. You don't get to re-roll anything. You don't get to roll 4 dice and drop 1. The only caveat you get is if you roll less than a 14, or you don't have any stats that are 14 or above, you can re-roll them all. But you have to re-roll them all. The problem is my Constitution 16 for this character, so I got stuck. I have a 12 strength, an 8 dex, a 16 con, a 6 intelligence, a 9 wisdom, and a 7 charisma. I have a whopping 7 hit points and an AC of 10.
Good luck in your future endeavors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another interesting thing about this system is you have 10 inventory slots, or whatever your strength is. So I have 12 inventory slots via my 12 strength, which is very helpful. But that is...
So there's no bulk, it's just items. It's like a Diablo.
There's no bulk. An item takes up a slot, yeah. And considering you need to bring gold back to town or treasure back to town to get experience, that's how you get your experience. You find the treasure, and then whether it's there's different levels of treasure, like 1 for 0, 1, 2, or 3 experience, or if you find like a legendary treasure, it's a 10 experience.
It's interesting. So do you like keep the treasure then? Like, is there value to it, or you just the value is experience? That
is something I'm fuzzy on. So as I'm playing with some Shadowdark veterans on Monday, I'll figure out more. And
possibly a little of both. It's almost like if you have to collect it to get the experience, but you also probably have to keep it to keep the experience. You know, you can't just bring it back and then spend it. So, you know, you're basically building your hoard is basically determining your level.
Well, that's weird because then how do you so you spend experience to get new items and shit?
What are you going to spend it on? What are you going to spend the stuff on? Like, you'll find weapons and stuff that you'll use, and then you use them. But what are you going to spend the gold on?
Yeah,
more items to put where? Because you only have 10 inventory slots. And you want
system, remember your
stuff back.
You're following other adventurers around potentially, and when they hit their 10 slots, they're just dropping extra stuff when they find new stuff. So there's probably stuff laying all over the place in this world.
So it is like Diablo.
When everyone's got in full inventory, it may be time to go back to town. Kind of be your site for going back to town. When you and a couple of neat things about the system: when you cast a spell, you roll a spell check, and if you beat the spell check, so you use your spellcasting modifier, and you roll a d20, and you're trying to beat 10 plus the spell's level. And if you beat 10 plus the spell's level, the spell works. And that's it. There's no targeting anyone. Well, you target people. I mean, clearly, because some spells have targets. But there's no, like, hitting an AC or anything. It's just if you hit the spell works.
Yeah, so basically, did you successfully cast it versus...
Yep.
I kind of like that. That sounds kind of interesting.
Here's the thing,
Is
though.
also the one where if you miss, then you lose the spell? Kind
Until
of
you
thing?
take a long rest, yes.
So as long as you succeed, you can keep casting that same spell.
As many times as you
until-
like. But the second you fail, you lose the spell for the day.
Oh,
So instead of spell slots.
that's
So I can cure wounds till my heart's content until I fail at doing so. So having a 9 wisdom with a -1 modifier as a priest is rough.
Something like assurance would be really good in that system if you knew you were going to succeed every time.
Yeah. Another thing, you're always in initiative. When you're
Yeah, I read
exploring,
that.
you're-
So that's the one thing I did read
Yes.
because I just did a brief check on it. That is very
I went down a rabbit hole last night reading a long thread on the Shadowdark Discord about it. And some people don't like it and some people love it. And it is literally just a different way to play the game. And if you're not used to it, you may end up really hating it. But
But it also said
I
you can
didn't-
travel as a group, so you don't have to
Yeah.
necessarily do initiative
Mhm.
as you're traveling as a group. So
yeah, but the second someone wants to do something different than travel, then you got to break into initiative, which I don't see as being a problem. And a lot of people, like the way they have initiative set up is everyone rolls initiative, and then whoever has the highest goes first, and you go clockwise around the table from there. It isn't you're in order, numbering
Right.
out order. It's a very quick system to achieve.
It makes it a lot easier to know who's next as opposed to, like flipping randomly around the table in some kind of a weird star pattern.
Yeah, and some of the people that were running games in it would kind of do a loose, almost a Daggerheart style thing where they roll initiative and whoever's first goes first, but then they're very good as a table of just making sure everyone takes a turn, and then the DM takes a turn, and then everyone takes a turn, and then the DM takes a turn to maintain rounds, which is important because a lot of the spells last a certain number of rounds. So there's timing that can break if you actually really walk away from that system. Another cool thing is torches are real time. Like when you light a torch, it lasts for a real time hour. When it goes out, you have disadvantage at everything you're trying to do, and the enemies have advantage at everything they're trying to do because no one has dark vision. Which is that's really kind of got me excited and interested. That's the first thing where I went, ooh, I like this.
yeah, that was
Turns are very simple. You move, you take an action. That's it.
the vision thing is very interesting to me because when you roll a character, like half of the characters have dark vision, so like half of which is very kind of, I'm talking about like for D&D and stuff.
Mhm.
So it's almost like you don't need to have necessarily any torches or anything because half your goddamn party can see in the dark.
Yeah.
And then it's just a hindrance to worry about the one human that you get in the party that can't see in the dark. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, here,
Yeah.
you need a
Well,
torch or you need light or something.
And I think that leads to the differences in the games. You think of if 5e is meant to get people into the game, the thing that you don't want to have them wasting their time on is things like rations and can you see in the dark and all of those things that it's like, okay, you have enough to focus on with all your abilities and what's going on in the game. Let's not worry about that. But then when you get maybe a more experienced player and it's like, okay, I want to be forced to keep track of that stuff. Like, I can't see. I have to keep track of how many torches I have and how long they're burning, and it becomes a resource management as opposed to just a game for I'll say newbies or whatever. So casual versus intense, I guess maybe is where that changes.
That's another thing. You need to carry rations because resting, injured characters can rest and recover from their wounds. To rest, a character must consume a ration and sleep for 8 hours. That sleep can be broken up for light routine tasks, such as taking a turn on watch. Each stressful interruption of rest, including combat, requires the affected character to make a DC 12 Constitution check. On a failure, the character consumes the ration but gains no benefit of resting.
Nice.
So if you get interrupted in the middle of the night, it's yeah. And then like it is baked in. The DM makes encounter checks, and depending on where you're staying, like if it's an unsafe area, you make a encounter check every 3 hours for the rests. If it's a risky area, you make a check every 2 hours. And if it's a deadly area, you make a check every hour. And then there's just a random encounter happens. Like, there are random tables for everything in here. In fact, rolling up your character is very random as well. So it's a cool system. I'm excited at getting to try. When you level up, it's random too. What you get, it's a bell curve, a 2d6 bell curve. And you can get the same thing multiple times. Like, for level 1, I got a +1 to ranged or melee weapons. I chose ranged because I'm a priest. I don't want to be in melee. Then I made sure I had a crossbow with some bolts. So, what else is in there? Spells. We went over that. We went over the inventory system. We went over kind of leveling. Oh, XP goes. You need your current level times 10 to level up, and then when you level up, you clear out your XP. So at level 1, I need 10 XP to go to level 2. So when I hit 10 XP, I go back to 0 XP. I go to level 2. So then I need 20 XP to go to level 3.
So now you're starting at level 1 with this campaign that you're joining.
I am, yes.
And what do you know? What level the rest of
I
them
know
are?
I know there's a level
20.
4 rogue in the party. Well, that's the other thing. It only goes to level 10, so that's...
So what's kind of cool, though, is that, okay, so let's say they're going to level 5. They need 50 experience. Well, 50 experience gets you all of level 1, all of level 2, and most of level 3.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So
you'll
I will
pretty
catch
quickly.
up if I can stay alive.
Yeah.
The other thing is I rolled out my character, and my DM goes, wow, you have 7 HP? You have nearly half the hit points of the level 4 rogue. I'm like, holy cow. Okay. I think the rogue's got like 16 hit points.
Okay,
Level 4.
so like it's not where you end up with like 100 hit points and you get hit for like 60.
Ooh, no.
Yeah.
No, because the only time your con modifier affects your hit points is at level 1. When you first create the character. And then after that, it's just your die roll.
So taking a d6 for every 10 feet of falling might be a little... I don't know what the rules are in Daggerheart.
Yeah, what are
In
the...
Shadowdark.
These falling rolls. Are there falling rolls? Oh, another real cool thing is... Oh, spending your money. Okay, you were asking what you spend your money on. Carousing. Carousing is a system where you have downtime.
Yeah, it is.
And...
There's a pill for that.
Where's the chart?
Ask
Yeah,
your doctor if carousing's right for you.
You can, when you go back to town, you can spend your gold to carouse for experience. So 100 gold. 30 gold points is a worthy night of drinking and festivities. Okay, let's see. When you return from the Shadowdark, you can carouse to celebrate your heroic exploits. To carouse, each participant pitches in for the cost of the event, and then each participant rolls 1d8 plus the event's bonus to determine the outcome. So then there's a whole outcome chart that is 14 plus, 1 to 14 plus, and then the carousing event, you can spend 30 gold, 100 gold, 300 gold, 600, 900, 1200, 1800 to get a +1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And there, it actually lays it out. A worthy night of drinking and festivities is a 0 bonus. A full day and night of revelry, gambling, and recounting your exploits gives you a +1. 2 days of crawling dozens of taverns to sing, buy rounds, and celebrate gives you +2. A 3-day voyage into the finest food, drink, and gambling you can find is a +3. A hazy week-long bender that runs multiple well-known taverns is a +4. A spirited fate lasting 10 days attracts hordes of revelers and takes over an entire town or city district, gives you a +5. And then 2 legendary weeks of drinking and debauchery, widespread enough to take over a whole city, attracts countless celebrants, including famous nobles, bards, and the streets run red with wine, is a +6. That's the 1800 gold.
So what is the bonus to?
The bonus is to a 1d8 roll, okay? So when you pay, everyone splits the cost of the thing, and then everyone that pitches in gets the bonus to their roll. So you roll 1d8, so in this case, say 1d8 +6. some of these things. A 1 on a D8, you wake up blearily in your bed and you gain 2 XP. At 14 plus, you wake up deep inside the local ruler's stronghold holding one of their priceless family heirlooms, and footsteps approach. You gain 6 XP and a 90 to 100 item from your treasure table if you escape. Those are the two extremes, is waking up blearily in bed and waking up deep inside a ruler's stronghold with a family heirloom.
That's amazing.
Do you all roll separately on that then, so each person gets something different?
It says you all roll separately. So, wow. But that is the really interesting thing. If you think about that, of the always on initiative, and it just dawned on me, when you have that always on initiative and you split the party, everyone still gets equal time. You're just in different places. Mm-hmm. And you can figure out how to get back to each other, and that would be kind of the thing. Now, I was reading online that like sessions will be 15 to 30 rounds. Like 3 to 4 hour sessions, like 15 to 30 rounds, and I'm like, that's really interesting. And I'm really curious to see how this plays out on Monday night, and we go through this because it's a 3-hour session. And then I'm really curious to run it to see how, like, the DM planning may be severely less. Like, it may be a slower paced game that is more about less epic, grand, world saving story and more about a story of adventurers in a cave fighting hard shit, or exploring ruins, or doing whatever they're doing.
It sounds like it gives more potential to actual story versus, all right, we're here, now we're there, okay, now we're here, okay, we're gonna go there.
I don't know about more story, but more personal.
Yeah,
story.
more. I should say more in depth, not more story, more storytelling.
So, if there's a conversation, how does that work with, like, if you're having a discussion with a king or queen about something or other? I mean, do you still have to stay in initiative and have everybody like say, "I'm doing nothing except for the person talking," or?
I think as long as everyone's staying there and participating in the conversation, you just have the conversation. But the second someone wants to step away, sneak around the backside, then it's okay. So here, go. You have 6 seconds to talk. So like, what's your next sentence to him? We'll get around to his next sentence to you. It may get a little clunky. I don't know, and it may. Like, it seemed like everyone that was like talking. Like, if you're really new and you're working with strangers, everything ends up being pretty rigid. But the groups that were together for a while, like, I imagine if the 5 of us did it on a Sunday morning, we would flow into some areas where I would let it just slide out of that always on initiative.
Right. We would, and
just get used to kind of what I would do likely. If you're staying in the conversation and I allow the conversation to happen, and then if anyone left the conversation, what I think I would do is, okay, you're leaving the conversation. We're going to go into initiative. Is anyone else going to leave the conversation? And then those people would have initiative, and then I go back to the conversation as part of the initiative order and let them talk a little bit, and then kind of stop the conversation and say, are you going to go do anything? Are you going to go continue doing anything?
Mm-hmm. And that would make sense. So, yeah. It would get really cumbersome if I get 3 seconds to think of something to say, then it just jumps to the next person. Like, that would just be.
And of course, like all good tabletop RPG sessions, there's a rule in the book. The DM's rule is in the book. It's the one rule that applies to all these systems. I've not seen a book without it. Is these are rules for this, but it is your game. Bend them, break them, move them, adjust them.
The rules are just the guideline.
Yep.
So you mentioned coming back from the Shadowdark. Is that kind of like the game is based around some thing you're clearing out, or an area that's
most like, of the places you adventure, like even like when you're traveling, it becomes like a hex adventure. meaning you have to address each hex as you move into it and do those things. And then eventually one of those hexes will be a cave or a dark forest with a singular path and becomes the Shadowdark where you need the torches. And once you get into that, so like the one I'm doing is exploring, the one I'm playing in, there's a runes up on, like you go up, there's a path that winds up a cliff and then you enter into these old ruins. And then there's a city down a staircase into a small city below. So a lot of it will have essences like this. And the more I read this, the more I think, and this is going to be lost on you, Jeff, because we've had this discussion, but this is the system if I ever do a Diablo game. This is the system I'm going to use. Because it feels very Diablo to me reading it and playing it. Like you even mentioned it, the loot system, Tom, being very much like Diablo. Which is really interesting because that's kind of where my system was headed. So.
And that's...
I don't know.
And Genius doesn't know. John and I have been talking back and forth.
Well, Genius knows about mine.
No, he knows about yours. But yeah, I've been creating my own as well over the last, I don't know, however long, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, something like that. And I keep going back and forth on stuff. But the one thing I think I actually really like is that Diablo style slot, weapon, armor, loot.
Yep.
Because I mean, we ignore bulk. We ignore bulk in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially coin bulk seems to be something. I mean, you think, could you really carry 1,000 coins around? I mean, number one, it would be heavy and cumbersome, but number two, that would be probably noisy. So, yeah, we do ignore a lot of that stuff in the interest of fun or of keeping it clean. But it is ridiculous when you look at some of the parties. I'm thinking specifically D&D, as you get to levels 10 and up of how many items you have. If you're not constantly cleaning up your pool of items, you just have stuff that you're never used and you're probably never going to use unless it's situational. And at least there is a bulk system in Pathfinder, but we're in a scripted thing, so there we're not finding all kinds of ridiculous stuff. It's all in and we have a party of 5, so we have, or 4, so we have plenty of carrying capacity.
There's encumbrance rules in 5e. We just never used them. And the more I'm playing, the more I like them. Like yesterday, we had the encumbrance rules on in Pathfinder, and it actually alerts you to things like buying caltrops. Like if you buy caltrops, it covers a 5-foot square. The caltrops, it's enough caltrops to throw down and cover a 5-foot square.
You're buying
one bag of caltrops that covers a 5-foot square. Well, our rogue bought 10 caltrops, thinking he was buying 10 caltrops, individual ones, and his encumbrance. I'm like, why are you clumsy? Oh wait, you're over encumbered. What did you do? He's like, oh, hang on a minute. I bought 10 caltrops because I figured it was a caltrop, and it's like, no, we looked it up. It's a 5-foot square, so you just need one, really. And so he took the other 9 out, and suddenly he was no longer encumbered.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. That's Alquin, by the way. Good morning, Alquin.
Yeah, encumbrance is one of those things that even like playing like Baldur's Gate or games like that where you get encumbered and you get slowed, like it's fine. It's not like my most favorite thing of games, whether it's tabletop or video, but I know why it's there. It's for freaking loot goblins who literally pick every single...
For Ben Schmidt.
Yeah.
In a general
if you
game,
ever watch that dude play any role-playing game, like his inventories blow my mind. Like he opens his bags and it's like something like bang, there's 100,000 things. I'm like, how do you do that? Because I'm like, I don't even buy extra loot tabs. And it's like, and then I'm not even using fully the one I have back in town. It's like,
Well, and that's where in these systems you're balancing the simplicity of, if we don't worry about encumbrance and then we don't have to have all the players worrying about that. Versus if you do limit it to a strict encumbrance, you're keeping it to the simplicity of you only get 10 or 12 things, and you don't have to think about 50 things. So it's kind of that balance of like, do you want to have it be like, let's not think about it, or let's make it so that you don't have things to think about?
Yeah. That is speaking about the like slots, having slots, where D&D 5e does it is with the attunement. You have attunement slots. I think there are actually rules in there saying like you can't wear 2 sets of armor, or you can't wear 2 necklaces, or 2 cloaks, or 2 rings. Well, you can wear 2 rings. You can't. I don't think you can wear more than 2 rings.
You could probably wear 2
big bling.
And I think you can have a ring on each finger.
Can you?
If you really wanted to. But if they're you only get 3 attunement slots. So if they're if they're attunement, it's like, well, you can only wear 3 very fancy rings. You could wear other non-attunement rings, but
I would think that if you wore like 2 fistfuls of rings, that you would have like a dexterity, like a negative to your dexterity, just because. I mean, your fingers would be clinking around and.
Yeah, I mean, depends on what you're doing. If you're a spellcaster, that may not be an issue, but if you're trying to hold on to some kind of handled weapon or shoot an arrow, that probably would.
It seems problematic for a rogue trying to pick a lock.
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing. Speaking of rogues picking locks, Shadowdark. The way it's done, because it's done in rounds, when you walk into a room, the DM needs to describe the room, like, add more detail to it. Like if I described you walking into an office, I would say there's a desk there with 5 drawers in it, a single wooden chair behind it. There's a rug on the floor, a bookshelf on the east wall, and a bookshelf on the west wall. What would you like to do? Now, you don't get to say, I'd like to explore the room and make an investigation check. You have to tell me what you want to do. Do you want to lift up the rug and look underneath it? Do you want to look in each drawer? Do you want to check the drawers for false bottoms? Now, all that being said, you telling me that if you do it and there's something there, you find it. There's no roll. It is all narrative. So if the key to the desk is taped under the underside of the desk and you lift up the rug and you don't find it, and you check the chair and you don't find it there, but no one looks under the desk, you don't find the key. There's no.
But if you do look
room.
under the desk, you have a 100% chance of finding it.
Yeah, if you do look under the desk, you find the key. It's more like, do you remember? Oh, what the hell is it called? Shadowgate for the NES. Yeah, it's like that. Where, okay, this door is locked by a silver key. But if you're a rogue and you want to pick the lock, if there's no stress to the situation, you pick the lock. There's no check to do it. You know how to do this. So if you have lock picking, you're gonna pick the lock. As long as there's nothing bearing down on you or breathing fire or trying to hit you or distract you, you just pick the lock and you go through the door.
So,
but one of the things, one of the DM tips that they give you, actually the very first one I think it is attack the light. Because if you can put their light source out, that puts them at disadvantage for everything, including relighting a. It's a brutal game in a way.
Right, but you know what you're getting into, so it's you're expecting it, so you know you have to play it that way. I mean, I think that's kind of similar. The way Alcuin DMs is a little more strict. If you don't say something. Yep. So you get used to, that's kind of the thing. You get used to going into the room and saying, I'm going to look under the rug or I'm going to look under the desk because that's how the system or the DM works. So as opposed to just,
I think I would be a bit more strict with Shadowdark, just understanding the system. Because when I look at Pathfinder and I look at D&D, you guys are heroes. I want to make you feel like heroes. I want you to be able to do cool ass shit. Like convince trolls to walk down the river to the ocean. No, but in Shadowdark, you're just people, man. I have that, and like I said, it feels very Diablo to me, and Diablo was always a dark, difficult, scary freaking game where you never knew where you were going next. That's the other thing. Your torch gives you only like 30 feet of light, so you don't know where you're going really. You're advancing, but if the light source advances, it leaves you in the dark.
Mhm.
And that's
A
the
little
thing.
more
You
like
gotta carry your
bow and
torches.
arrow.
Yeah. You gotta carry your torches. Your torches do stack. I don't know how high they stack, but they take one slot, so they stack. But 3 torches makes a campfire for a long rest. So if you
Okay,
want
so
light
you-
for an 8-hour rest,
Okay.
or I would roll 12-hour rest because you want to take 3 watches, likely, or 2 maybe. Who knows? No, you'd want to take 3. So 3 4-hour watches would get everyone 8 hours of rest.
Mhm. That's interesting. So if you had like 4 torches, that wouldn't be 4 slots. That would be kind of like your regular.
Torches and rations both
Yeah.
stack. It seems.
Makes sense.
Now,
And
how high? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
How
like
high?
maybe you can
Real
only carry
high.
5 or
How high? Real high. So high because I'm just a fly. Because I'm a young, lovable type of guy. No one else remembers anymore?
no, that's all I knew was what I said.
Is that jump?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Daddy Mac make you
Yeah.
jump.
Jump,
The
jump.
Mac Daddy make you jump.
Jump.
I wear my clothes with the front to the back, cause inside out is a wicked whack. That's the only line I know from the song.
Yeah. Oh, simpler
Oh.
times.
Oh yes.
Mhm.
Oh yes. Treasure overview mundane item.
Genius. Just as
Oh.
a side note, while
Alright.
John's looking this up,
Yeah.
I'll send you a PDF of what I have, all my random thoughts, just so you can see what my stupid brain has done.
No, I'd love to sit down and discuss that and kind of give feedback. It's
Mhm.
it's definitely something, and having worked with game design, it's something that you can definitely follow yourself down a rabbit hole and not recognize that it's not always a one-way or a singular path, and we get focused on one thing. One of the recent games we've been working on for the Dragonhawk stuff, we had it almost to the point where we were thinking about a Kickstarter, and then we talked to someone who is kind of he runs the I think he's the one of the ones that run the Protospiel thing down in Madison, and it's kind of like, well, what if you did this? The same, like the basic rules are the same, but the way you play it out is different. Almost like the difference between a 2 different role-playing systems. It's like it's the same game, but it's also very different. And it's like, oh, okay, well that definitely takes us back, but it fixes a lot of the little problems that we had. So it's definitely good, and depending on where you are at with development, kind of it's you don't want to share too much too soon, because it's like you got to get enough of an idea,
Mhm.
but you also want to make sure that you're not pigeonholing yourself into one thing that is fun for you or makes sense for you, but other people would be like, I don't get it. Like, whether it's I don't get it because I don't understand, or I don't get it, why would I want to do that kind of thing? So again,
Yeah.
not knowing anything about yours, I'm not specifically targeting you. I'm just
How dare you?
yeah.
How dare you say things that you don't know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Yeah, mine.
I mean, I really love the way that Critical Role has the fan base, that they have basically an unlimited testing pool, but obviously we don't have that same fan base, so we
No.
we don't have hundreds of thousands of people.
No, but we
for
got
anything.
we got probably 20 or so.
We got a pretty good,
If we got them all up,
yeah.
a pretty good group of people. I'm looking for this and I'm not finding it.
Yeah. So the
But I
one
did.
the way I'm looking at mine is it's more of, I don't want to say more of, but like the rolling, like it's kind of easy
Here
D6,
we go.
roll a D6, 4,
Mhm.
5, 6 hits, 1, 2, 3 misses, but then you can find like weapons that will give you critical. Like, you don't start out with critical hits. Like, you find a sword that will give you a critical hit. So 4, 5 would be a hit, 6 would be critical. And then there's like feats you can do like that increase your chances. So instead of 1, 2, 3 missing, it'd be 1, 2 miss, 3, 4, 5, 6 hit. So just, it's you have to find the stuff in order to use it versus you just, if you roll this, you critical hit regardless of whether you're level 1 with a little tiny rusty dagger or...
There's some overlap and similarities between what Tom and I are doing.
Yeah, mainly because we've been talking about it and John's been giving me ideas.
Okay, so I found this. So torches are 1 inventory slot, but rations are 1 to 3, take up 1 slot. Iron spikes are 1 to 10. Gems are 1 to 10, and up to 10 of them in 1 slot. Crossbow bolts, you can hold 20 in 1 slot. Arrows, you can hold 20 in 1 slot. Your first backpack is free to carry. Coins, you can carry. The first 100 are free to carry. And every 100 after that take up an inventory slot. And then you were asking, Tom, dealing with loot, treasure typically occupies 1 gear slot. Coins occupy 1 slot per 100. But the GM might determine otherwise. Characters can sell most treasure based on its material value, but they may need to find a curio collector to offload strange and magical items.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, so it's like anything else. Like,
so you basically, convert everything to gold and then carouse to earn experience. So you get to go collect the treasure and then use it to party, and you actually gain experience for partying as opposed to...
So you're encouraged to carouse.
Yeah, you're encouraged to go drinking and on a bender and end up in a noble's dungeon with one of his heirlooms.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm sad that I'm just hearing about this now.
Hey, your game's still in development. Feel free to add it.
My game has gone from regular tabletop to nothing but party. Just
carousing.
Luke Goblin to party. Luke Goblin to party. Luke Goblin to party.
One thing I think you should experience when you can is under the Daggerheart game. There's a lot of free flow, like not just the initiative, but also in kind of the game building or the world building, where the DM might just look at you and say, what is this person's name, or what do you see when you're here? How is this different than normal? And even to the starting it out, naming towns and things like that. So, that's just something that's kind of similar with the Easy D6, at least with the wizard had, there were no spells in Easy D6. You basically said, I would like to do this, and it's not quite that free, but it kind of starts getting along that line. I think that's something that, Tom, since you haven't played Daggerheart yet, I think you'd get a kick out of that.
It is a very
it's very cooperative.
Yeah, like in the quick start adventure. Oh crap! I'm not signing. I went to Demiplane to try and. I think I have it saved. No, I don't. Okay. Let's see. I gotta do. Give me a second. All right, here we go. So in the these are characters. Let's see, Marla Fairwind. These are all characters still. Why is this? Load up. Game Master Adventure Guide. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Like, fuck me. I know what page I'm looking for.
Don't you threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, exactly, right? You get to a bar at one point in here, and where is it? Let's disable messages. Here we go. Merchant Cart, Thick of Thieves, Seeking, and Arcanist. Okay, yeah. So it describes the Clover Tavern. It says the Clover Tavern is a sight to behold with 6 curving stories. I only did 5. Climbing the trunk of an ancient tree. This is the heart of the community. Always crowded with music and good-natured conversation. Newcomers come to the bar, must take off their shoes and hang them on a line that stretches across the bar's ground floor. Inevitably, by the time the visitors leave, their shoes will be shined and filled with small trinkets. As you enter, what would you like to do? Now, it says, let the role players here role play for a bit. Introduce them to the barkeeper or friendly local who asks them to hang their shoes on the line. Let them explore different levels. And if you feel comfortable, ask some of your players to participate in describing details about it. So what I did is it had 5 floors. So I said to them, Jeff, move your mic a little bit. You're breathing on it. I just went, all right, what does this floor look like? What does this floor look like? And someone said, well, someone cracked a joke about there being a red light district floor. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the 5th floor. That's the top floor. And I got around to Jeff. I said, Jeff, what's different about the 4th floor?
So gravity is reversed. So when you walk up to it, it's like a MC Escher labyrinth style. You walk up the stairs to get there, but you actually come down to that floor, kind of a thing, because everything's upside down. And then later in the adventure,
staircase doubles back on itself, and suddenly the gravity changes. And then, of course, playing with that, I had to have a bouncer throw someone off the 5th floor that would fall down the central area of it and loop around and land on the 4th floor.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's little things like that in there. Like especially if you go talk to someone, and like helping the players, having the players help you create the world. And I've tried to incorporate a little bit. I'm trying to get better at asking players to say, "Hey, well, what does it look like? What's different about this thing?" And maybe not have them describe something, but asking that question like, "What is different about this floor?" You don't have to describe the whole floor, but what makes it weird, or what makes it
what's something you notice about it
special
that is different?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think the other thing that we said, and you said, John, that you thought was very interesting in playing Daggerheart that was different was because of the way initiative is set up, everybody's invested at all times during combat.
Yeah, because at any point you can step in. And what they ended up starting to do, because it's a free-form combat, and you just let them, hey, I want to do this, and you put the token in, and now we walked away. And we're kind of talking to him. but you put the token down, it's like, hey, I want to do this, you put your action token, you take a turn. Anyone can do that anytime, but you guys automatically started just lining tokens up in order, which was like a super cool thing. And then that order was kind of a loose initiative that you guys determined. Where that one point in the final fight where you needed to jump ahead, you're like, hey, I just want to move. Can I move ahead here and just move real quick to here? Because that's all I want to do.
Yeah, it was kind of a really nice hybrid between the two, where it wasn't just, okay, well, one person overtakes it and does whatever they want whenever they want, but it wasn't also, well, now I have to wait until everybody else goes before I can go again, kind of a thing. And it was a really, and again, there was 7 of us, and it could have just been that we work really well together, we play really well together, that it worked really well for us, but it did really work really well. And there was, again, at no point was anybody like walking away to get a snack or going to the bathroom because you knew,
or on their phone, or
on their phone. That's a big one, because at any point they could have gotten, like, okay, wait, you need me right now, I need to jump in, it's my go.
Especially with a group of 7 people. That's
right.
Like in my homebrew, when we had 7 people, when combat dragged on at those later levels, I can't blame you guys for jumping on your phone. It'd be a half hour between your turns. Like, and then half of that is like the people going,
Right.
So, yeah, unless something dramatic was happening and you all delivered your turn like Matt Mercer does, like, I would expect everyone to be on the edge of their seat paying attention. But the way Daggerheart worked, Tom, is it's kind of a loose initiative. Anyone can step in. the way they ended up handling that is lining up tokens along the board, creating their own initiative that they could adjust whenever they wanted.
Like a pinball machine or a pool table. We basically had our tokens lined up.
Like quarters for the next game. So
the other thing that was very interesting with Daggerheart is that at each level you basically would get the choice of a card. It was basically set up as cards. You get to choose a card for the level, and that would be the choice for your new ability. And up to level 5, you just keep adding one card each level. But after that, you only had the slots to cover those. So when you went to the next level, you'd have to basically put one of your abilities to the side, which didn't mean it was gone, but it would cost you something to access it. So you didn't end up at, level 10 or 20 and all of a sudden have like 50 abilities that you were trying to sort through every turn. You kind of had a limited amount of things you could do, but you could customize it and tailor it to your style of play. So kind of like feats, except they were, I guess modular too. So
yeah. So I mean, like any time they could come out and say, well, here's a card pack for this subclass of Paladin or Guardian, I think it's called in Daggerheart. So it's a really interesting kind of system. So like you said, you have 5 card slots. So up until level 5, you're just adding to it. But beyond level 5, you only get to have 5, and at the end of each long rest, you can switch out what you want. But if you want access to them during the day, there's a way to get it by stressing your character. There are some skills that have a no stress cost to sub in, but then you got to take out of your 5 abilities.
I think there were some cards too that had a caveat that if you did something a certain way, that card was was no longer able to be used. It basically went permanently to your side cache.
That's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of design
almost
space
think
idea.
like a wish. Think like a wish. Like you get one wish one time, or you commune with your god one time, and after that you can't do it anymore. You basically exhausted it. Yeah. And then that becomes a permanent side thing. So you get something really amazing for some amount of time, and then it eventually goes away.
Yeah. What is the death rules are super cool in the system too.
Oh yeah,
you get to find them.
You choose either I went unconscious like most games, or you could say I'm going to risk it all and come back, chance of coming back at full health, full strength, or completely dying, never to be resurrected again. Or the other one was go out in a blaze of glory. You're choosing the hero's death, and you basically get to crit one last time on your way out.
Yeah.
So you're done playing with this character, but want to make a big splash at the end. Go for it. Or you like the character, but you don't think you're going to survive if you don't take the risk of some kind of a heroic comeback.
That's interesting.
Or like, well, I'm not the healer. Someone's going to bring me back, so I'll just wait until they all go unconscious till they heal me. So it's really situational depending on where you're at and what caused your demise.
Yep, Blaze of Glory. You embrace death and go out in a blaze of glory. Take one action at GM discretion, which becomes an automatic critical success. Then cross through the veil to death. Avoid death. You avoid death and face the consequences. You roll your hope die, which is 2d12, which I can explain to you in a second. If its value is equal to or under your level, you gain a scar. You also drop unconscious temporarily. Work with the GM to describe how the situation gets much worse because of it. You may not move or act while unconscious. You return to consciousness when an ally clears one or more of your marked hit points, or when your party finishes its next long rest. Risk it all. Roll your duality die. That's not your hope die, but your duality die. Your duality die, you get a hope die and a fear die. If hope is higher, you stay on your feet and clear an amount of hit points and stress equal to the value of the hope die. Divide the hope die value up between these however you'd prefer. If your fear die is higher, you cross through the veil of death. If the duality dice are tied, you stay on your feet, clear all hit points and stress. So that's basically a crit. So anytime, instead of rolling a d20 in the system, the players roll 2d12. One is marked as a hope die and one is marked as a fear die. So you get 2 different D12s that are clearly one is one and one is the other. And there's a lot of mechanics on when you roll. You have 4 different outcomes. You can roll as add the 2. Well, okay. When you roll, you add the 2 dice together, and then you whichever die is higher is it's with hope or it's with fear. So you can
number
succeed with hope or number with fear.
Yep. So you can succeed with hope or
Yep.
succeed with fear.
So where
you could fail with hope or fail with fear. And if the 2 die are tied, then you critically succeed.
Now, what does hope and fear mean? When you roll with hope, you gain a hope token to use, similar to Easy D6.
It's a resource.
It's a resource for activating activating abilities and such. When you roll a fear, the DM gets a fear token, which is similar, but it's for the DM. Tokens for the DM to do stuff. And then, like, at any point, the DM can interrupt combat by spending 2 fear and just go in and take a turn. And then they can spend fear to get action points, which are given to them when players take actions, typically. It's a really interesting system. It's way more complicated in its base, like, descriptions of how the damage... I mean, like, you have hope, fear, stress, hit points, armor markers, and all that is part of your combat system. You also have damage thresholds, which interacts with your hit points and stress. So it's a much more... There's a lot of more moving pieces to the general system, but once you understand that, the character building and character choices are much simpler.
Yeah, I was kind of saying that the way I kind of looked at it yesterday when we were talking is that if you've played role-playing games before, Daggerheart is, for the most part, easier. There's more, you have more of those, the things he was listing of stress and hit points and hope and fear and all that kind of stuff, but the system itself is probably at least as simple, if not simpler, than most of the role-playing games. If you've never played before, then I think that would be a limiting factor, because there's just a lot to keep track of when you're also trying to figure out how tabletop role-playing games work. Where I think Easy D6 is kind of the opposite side of that, where it's some of the stuff is almost too easy that it's confusing, whereas Daggerheart, some of it's a little too confusing that it's confusing. But again, once you've played some, you at least have the base, and you have that advantage.
Yeah. So I'm really curious, because the other day I started looking through the adversaries and environments, and we played at level 1. So like the amount of damage and the damage thresholds of things they were fighting. So damage thresholds, to explain them, when you get hit, so you have an evasion score, which is like your AC in Pathfinder and D&D. So the
usually
thing decides
low.
It's going to hit you. It's kind of low unless you're like super agile. But if something then hits you, they roll damage, and the damage may be, we'll say 14. You have a choice then, if you want to spend an armor marker to apply your armor to the damage, which would reduce that amount of damage by your armor score. Then, the reason you'd want to do this is you have damage thresholds. You have a minor threshold, a major threshold, and a severe threshold. And if you are below your minor, you don't take any damage. If you're above your minor but below your major, you take 1 hit point of damage. If you're above your major and below your severe, you take 2 hit points of damage. And if you're above your severe, you take 3 points of damage. So that's why you'd want to use armor markers to try and lower the damage done to you. So those damage numbers at level 1 were like minor threshold, major threshold, severe threshold were like 1, 8, and 14 for the things they're fighting. And like damage done is like 2d8 melee physical damage. But then I started looking at the creatures, and you get into like the level 10 creatures or the tier 3 creatures. And their damage thresholds, their major damage thresholds are at like 80 and 90. So I'm really curious how, as you get to the higher level gameplay, how those work. Because your damage is, you have a damage proficiency, and all it does is, like, if your damage is 1d6 with a dagger, and you have a damage proficiency of 2, it becomes 2d6. Right? Is that how that works, Jeff? And then 3d6 or level 3 or damage proficiency become 3d6.
Yeah. So basically every level you end up rolling 1 extra die for your damage. But there's other things I think that increase your proficiency, so you could have more.
Because when you level, there are things you can grab.
Yeah.
So it is. The stat blocks for DMing are super, super simple and like cool, because like the character has a tier, a type, a difficulty. The difficulty is the number that players need to hit them. That's their evasion, basically. They have an attack modifier, what damage they do, their damage thresholds, hit points, stress, and then maybe 1 or 2 abilities. It's like super simple to look at it, and you have all the numbers you need, and they have something that makes them distinct, and that's it. It's not a, like, if you go look at like an ancient red dragon, you got to read a full page of stuff to figure out what you're doing. Let me go find a big ass dragon here.
And I think you said even in the module that they gave you, there were some hints on how a monster might behave or how it may make or break your party success. There was one creature, and maybe this is a spoiler, so those of you who don't want spoilers, there was a creature that could basically petrify your character, the player characters, until something else happened. And that, I think you said there was a warning in there that said, like, if this gets around to all the characters, you basically have a TPK. Because then
be careful with this. You could deathlock your party and no one could get out, because the thing to get out won't ever happen if they're all locked in. But like there is a volcanic dragon here. It's a tier 3. That's the nice thing, is they have tier 0, which is level 1 adversaries, tier 1, which is 2 to 4, tier 2 is 5 to 7, and tier 3 is 8 to 10. And that is literally their.
And it assumes a typical party of like 3 to 5 players.
Yeah. So if your average party level falls in 2 to 4, use tier 1 adversaries. If your average party level falls between 8 and 10, use tier 3 adversaries. But yeah, it's tier 3, this dragon. Type solo, so you should use the dragon by itself. It has an attack modifier plus 10, claws and teeth, close 60, 10 plus 10 physical damage. Minor 1, major 26, severe 57. It has 7 hit points. But it has those damage thresholds, like it's severe damage. If you want to deal 3 hit points of damage to it, you got to do over 57 hit points of damage to it with one swing. It has, what does it have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Six abilities. It may sound like
big math, but it really boils down to you just have to beat that number, and it does a small number. So, like he said, there's only 7 hit points, but in order to take away those hit points, you have to hit a certain number that translates it then to 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, to do more than 1 damage to it in a turn, you got to do more than 26 damage. So it has but it would reward like those massive critical strikes if you're getting over those thresholds. Like if you get that massive critical and you get over the 26 and you suddenly do 2 damage to it, that's a big deal if it's only got 7 hit points. Or if you somehow manage to do some ultra double damage critical strike and do 60 damage to it, suddenly you've taken 3 of its hit points away. It's really nice to use from a DM perspective, because it's real kind of simple to track. Like we just put dice next to things. Once they understood how many hit points something had, like they were fighting multiple or something, like just put a d6 next to it on the table. You guys know whenever we dealt 4 hit points whenever you do it, point of damage to it, take it down 1. When that goes away, it kind of allowed a little bit of metagaming, but at the same point, you're going to understand.
I think we counted up so that we didn't know how many hit points it had left.
That was it. Yeah, that was what we were doing.
Yeah.
They're counting up. So anytime damage was done, they put a D6 next to it on a 1. And then moved it to 2, moved it to 3, moved it to 4.
And if it was a crit, we get to move it up 2.
Yeah. And that made sense in the moment. The reason I allowed that to happen is because you'd see that. You'd see bloody slashes or dents in the armor or scrapes or a broken arm if something got damaged. Like, you'd be able to observe that fighting. So
and it really made it more simple for the DM as far as which character was which and which one had taken which damage, and trying to say how dead are they, and especially when in that system you choose which, as a DM, you choose which characters are attacking and when.
Yeah.
So so like he may say, well, this character's almost dead, I better use one of my actions to have it do something before it's gone, or maybe be like, well, that's sacrificial, it's not going to survive, I might as well go with a different one. So it's, and be able to see that on the board as opposed to keep looking. Okay, well, I'm looking at the combat tracker.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out which one on the board is that one, and back and forth. So it made there was just a lot of things in Daggerheart that, whether it was in the rules or not, we were making it more simple to track.
Yeah. And that ended up being very cool for me because I didn't have to be nose in a sheet of paper. Like, I think there was a whole focus, and I think they've said this with Daggerheart, is getting your nose out of the book and into the game. Get your nose out of your eyes off of the table, and your eyes at each other. And the map.
And out of your phone, too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it's real easy to get going. Once you get going and you understand what you're swinging, like, you have one weapon you can equip. You can equip a second weapon, but that second weapon is typically for its stat bonuses, or may give you an ability that you can do. If you got 2 finesse weapons equipped, you get a special ability type thing. Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot of other games that Tom hasn't played, so I'd like to hear Tom talk a little bit now. Hey, Tom, so what, between the games you've played and maybe tabletop in general, what are your, people always kind of ask the question, combat, role play, social encounters, like what is your favorite parts of any of the games you've played, and that could be strategy related, it could be player related.
That's interesting because it is all dependent upon what's going on. Like, if we're in a good battle, like, I really, obviously fighting is fun. It depends upon my character too. Like, I had a lot of fun with Aranon just living life.
Being Aranon, like, you really got into Aranon in a way that I don't know that you found your feet with Abed yet.
And there was Doug after that, and
Abed is a slow roll right now because he is like shit.
He has secrets.
He has secrets, and shit is kind of happening, and as things progress in our story, you're gonna see some weird shit. But Abed is very quiet and alone. Like with Abed, excuse me, I'm having a lot of fun with him as far as I don't want to say behind the scenes, but I'm having fun kind of developing him in the story and the interactions between, like, Kane and Crew and Lady Syl. Like,
you have a good idea of what Abed is. And I think where you're really trying to, when I say you're trying to find your feet with him, you're really actually trying to find ways to portray what he is in the game.
It's hard. It's hard to, when we're doing stuff, it's hard not to just do things because I want to do it, but it's not what he would do.
Yeah.
and with Aranon, it was very loose and very, like, I mean,
Aranon would just go do shit. Like, that was Aranon. Like, he had no, like, predispositions to not doing something.
If something was on his mind, he said it. If you wanted to do something, he would try it. If you wanted to, yeah, it didn't matter.
Abed's a thinking man's character.
I would say a thing, and I've seen this on Critical Role with Travis's original character, and with my first character, Graz. It is really fun being a smart person playing a dumb character, because you would think like there aren't a lot of choices, but the comedy gold you can get out of that, and like you said, you can do whatever you want. Like Aranon wasn't a dumb character; he was just very forward. He, if he thought he wanted to do something, he just did it.
He was selfish.
That was kind of right, and that's like there's nothing holding you back, and that's kind of the fun part about playing a dumb character is. There's nothing holding you back, because as a dumb character, you don't have reservations of having to look smart or having to do the right thing. It really helps if you're new to a game system too, because you can make all the mistakes you want and just say, "Oh, that's my character. That's not me not knowing how to play."
Yeah.
So I think if you play into like a Daggerheart or something like that, think about playing a dumb character, and just like whenever you want to do something stupid, just do it, because that's what your character would do. Just as a suggestion. So outside of your character, what do you how do you feel about like your favorite parts, your favorite moments of the game? Do you like combat more? Do you like social encounters more? Do you like puzzles? Like where?
I'm not much of a puzzle
do you
guy.
Like being
I'll be honest.
Caught in a basement of a haunted house with a rabbit as your only companion.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. As far as like your your puzzles go, I'm not like all right, we're gonna sit in this room, you're gonna kind of like the Tomb Raider / what's the PlayStation exclusive, the Uncharted. You're gonna sit in a room and you're gonna look at these 3 amulets and you're gonna look at these 6 statues and you have to twist the that's not
that shit.
Yeah, that's
your
not
seventh cast.
Yeah,
I think about that the Bleak Barrow Tomb in Skyrim, and just that moment when you get there and you have the claw and you realize you got to put the claw in the door, and then you got to make sure that all the things are rotated to the right direction. But it's like I see the pictures, but where the fuck is the key? There's a key that tells me which directions these need to be turned in. It's got to be in this room somewhere. I love shit like that.
I'm not gonna lie. I looked that shit up. Like if playing games, I will go right to the internet and I will look that shit up. I am not
Grab
scared.
the player guide.
Yeah.
But that's Zelda in a nutshell too. Like there's a lot of that stuff in Zelda, just trying to manipulate and figure out how the space works, and I love it. I love stuff like that.
But I mean, essentially, to answer your question, I love combat. Combat's a lot of fun, but I also enjoy the exploration. To me, it sounds kind of lame, but I don't necessarily. There's not one part of what we've been doing that I haven't thoroughly enjoyed, and maybe that's because John's a good DM. Maybe it's because as a group we flow. Maybe
There's a lot to be said about having a good group of people that work well together. That makes us enjoyable.
Yeah, because like even when we're just walking around and doing nothing, like we still have Cooch wisecracking, we still have Rick like poking the bear, we still have Genius doing whatever the hell Genius does.
Yeah.
It's like, Rick, crew, it's one of them lock things again. You guys don't want me making noise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But even something as simple as me sending a message to the group saying, "Hey, what do you see down there?" Like that could have been a boring interaction, but Rick just saying whatever, I can't remember what I said. What Rick said.
Yeah.
Super blunt and unhelpful.
Yeah, like that stuff makes it really fun. So I think even the mundane stuff that people would get kind of bogged down in, I think we make that interesting.
Tom, have you only had the one in-person Easy D6, or have you done more in-person than that?
Nope, that's the only in-person.
That's the only in-person one I've done.
I think you would really enjoy an in-person campaign, or at least more one-shots if you can get. I just think there's a different dynamic when you can look around the table and you're getting winks and little side conversations where you're like, here, if I do this, you can do blah blah, and kind of setting that stuff up. I think you should. I think you get a kick out of that. I know it's a time commitment, right? When you got a game on Friday night and Saturday and Sunday morning and Monday after in the evening,
and then that's the issue is I don't have the time to say every other Monday night I can do this or.
I'm embracing being single. I don't have to worry about splitting my time with other people. Kind of nice.
For those of you on the podcast, I am pointing at the camera
at me
vigorously fingering the camera.
He's fingering me.
Yeah, and for me, with the kids and stuff, I've chosen this to be basically my only hobby. So if it takes up time, that's I don't do movies, I don't do a lot of other things. So this is kind of my. I don't do a lot of sports stuff, so this is my thing. This is
becoming more and more just my thing. Like I play less and less video games now. It's more messing around with these systems, writing stuff, reading stuff, getting into. Like I always kind of wanted, like back in the day when I first started that first homebrew campaign, I was listening to the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. Fantastic podcast, by the way. Go back. Listen to the stuff way in the archive and everything and work your way through. Tons of knowledge, especially about DMing. I listened to years of that before I even started DMing. And it was, they talked about all these different systems. The Apocalypse World and GURPS and pretty much everything but D&D. D&D was kind of saw or looked at as a... This is the entry-level game that everyone plays. It's the popular game. But there are all these other game systems that are just as cool. Like Monster Hearts and all these other like different things. I'm like, I want to play more than just D&D. I don't even have friends to play D&D with yet. So let's get that going first. I'm finally at a point now where I have enough friends that I got into role-playing that we've spread out from D&D, and the OGL fiasco helped massively get into other systems, trying easy D6 one-shots, meeting people to play Shadowdark with, talking about the Daggerheart and doing one-shots and that, and it sounds like honestly, Dave...
I want to try the Star Wars one. That seems like
dice.
Yeah, like that seems like a really fun system.
That one's got a system similar to the like where you have the hope and the fear. You can roll what is it? Get what they're called, but you build a dice pool before you make your roll based on what skills you're using. Which is really I've listened to people play it, and then you can succeed. It's like you can succeed with a hindrance, or you can fail with like a bonus or a benefit. It has a very similar feel to the hope and fear dice.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that one at all, but it seems like just because it's not, I mean, it's fantasy, it's science fiction, but it's not like your orcs and monsters and you have things like blasters and guns and.
I mentioned Starfinder.
Yeah, so
which has the Pathfinder rule set, and is the Starfinder 2e was going to align with Pathfinder 2e. Like, that wouldn't be a terrible jump after this campaign to go into finally get away from fantasy and do like a sci-fi thing.
Without having to learn a new system.
Exactly.
Learn the new names of the abilities or items and things.
Totally be down for that, because I think that would be, it would just be a natural progression for what this show is teaching. It's learning how to do stuff, and it's and that's the one thing that I really like that we've kept from episode 1 to now is we are very much into pausing the game and actually discussing the rules and what's and I like that because it helps me let's be honest, it helps me a lot. But also I think it just kind of keeps up with the theme of what this show was started as.
And another really, really kind of great thing about going to Starfinder? There's a Starfinder Archives of Nethys.
No.
Nice.
So we wouldn't have to Like, I mean, granted, I'm gonna buy the books, but for referencing, it will all be out there for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, that just tells you kind of the difference between the corporation that has overrun the one system versus the freedom and accessibility that has become, the other systems.
Yeah.
It's, you look at what Critical Role is doing, you look at Archives of Nethys, you look at that and go, where is that in the corporate, conglomeration that D&D has become?
Mm-hmm.
So you have androids, humans, Kasatha, Lashunta, Shirin, Vesk, and Yasoki.
Bless you.
Those are the core species in Starfinder.
I was gonna say, I think we need to send somebody to John's apartment to see if he's having a stroke.
Yeah.
But then it's funny because you have core legacy species: dwarf, elf, gnome, half elf, halfling, and half orc. And that's the real cool thing about Starfinder, is you could go to a planet and suddenly end up like in a Pathfinder setting.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have so you have the city of Absalom in Galarian, the Pathfinder setting. In Starfinder, there's Absalom Station. It is a space station called Absalom. So there's a lot of parallels things, and I forget what they said initially when it came out, that it's years into the future, and Absalom has become Absalom Station. But yeah, when they came out and said that it was going to be, my ears perked up. They said Starfinder 2E is going to align with Pathfinder 2E, and I went, oh, really? And I think that is debuting or playtest debuting at Gen Con this year.
Oh, nice.
So it's not far off. It should be around by the time we wrap
shit up
this up. I mean, we're almost done with the first book out of 3.
I mean, that would be an interesting thing to take, an established party and say, a spaceship shows up and whisks you away. You were wizards and rogues and stuff, and now you're in space. Do with it what you will. Level up from there.
You walk back to town into TBD. Ellie looks at you and says, I think you're finally ready. And flips up a little wood panel on the bar and hits a button, and the holodeck disappears. And you're standing on a holodeck. How cool would that be to end the campaign? And then we go into Starfinder. Did I just write the ending to this campaign?
I think you did.
I think I did. Wow. I should have shut up about that. That'd be amazing.
No, we will probably not remember it by then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you end up becoming whatever race you were. Or that's the end of today's session.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can go back to your life. You guys were actually just playing Pathfinder the whole time.
That's funny.
These Starfinder characters.
We were Starfinder characters playing
Pathfinder. We'll get real meta here. Ellie was your DM.
Oh, we were in a Starfighter Academy or something, and now that was the night before graduation, and now we have to go off and do our thing.
Oh, fucking A, Jeff, you're writing it for us. Hell yeah.
Collaborative storytelling. That's my favorite part of all
of
this.
I love it. Oh, and how the hell is it 10 a.m. already? How does that work? Just that quick. That.
Just that quick. All right. I will take us out. We are Two Nerds and Quest. We're here Sunday mornings, 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Twitch.tv/TomMNorm, TOMMNORM. Bit.ly/NerdTube. That is our YouTube channel. You can get all of our shows there. Going all the way back to our episode 1, which was just John and I. So go and check out those. They're a lot of fun. It's interesting to look back on them. Support the show. Let other people know about the podcast. Let other people know about the show. Have them come and check us out. Prime subscriptions on Twitch are free. So if you have one of those, feel free to drop it in. We appreciate any and all support. Patreon.com/Two Nerds. One Quest is our other paid service, I guess you would say. There you get there's some tiers that need to be updated, but also you get the unedited podcast with the pre and post show content, shit that we talk about before and after the show. Yeah, that's it. Let other people know about the show. That being said, for me, for Genius, and for the DMJC, we'll catch you next week. There, nerds.
Word.